Hey everybody, it's Rebecca Johnson of Supergirl Radio. Just getting the live stream started here. As we wait on Morgan, I guess one of the things that I can do is update everybody on the schedule for Supergirl Radio. So for the next couple of weeks, I will be out of town. And so I will be unavailable for the live and wired streams. So Morgan's been a real good sport to pre-record some things with me. So for the next 2 weeks, for the next 2 episodes of Supergirl Radio, we will not be live, but we will have video premieres on the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube right now, it's this channel. So we'll have some video premieres coming up. Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern is when those will happen. So we won't be live. We won't be able to interact with you because that'll be past Morgan and Rebecca. But we'll still be having a discussion, and you can definitely still share your thoughts in the comment section if you have any thoughts you want to share about the topic of discussion that we're going to be talking about. So we'll have video premieres on the YouTube channel. We'll also have the usual podcast episode in the audio podcast feed. Because, I know sometimes, even I follow people on YouTube and still listen to their podcasts on audio just because I can maybe go 2 times the speed. I think you might be able to do that on YouTube now, but sometimes if I just want to get through something really quickly, I'll just download the audio version and get it done that way. Because then I can also not have to watch it. So people like to consume their podcasts in different ways. So whether you watch it on YouTube or in the audio podcast feed, the next 2 episodes will be pre-recorded. So we will not be live the next 2 weeks. But we are going to be talking about some things related, semi-related, kind of, to the Flash movie. So that is what we're gearing up towards, the greatest movie of all time. Morgan, I see you there. Are you ready to go?
I am.
Okay, good. I'm glad. So I was just getting the viewers and listeners up to speed. Rachel has a question in the chat, I guess, before we get started. I mean, we could tackle this in our discussion, but did you count how many times Kara says hope in this episode?
I should have. I briefly thought maybe I should do a drinking game where I drink every time she says hope, and I was like, I wouldn't be able to do the podcast.
I think when I counted the speech in season 1, it was 7 times maybe, but they say it a couple of different instances throughout the episode. So looks like we got new Rachel here, Claudia's here, Josh is here. So I guess we will go ahead and get started, and we will be talking about the season 1 finale of Supergirl, titled Better Angels.
Leslie Lar's downfall is just that eyebrow twitch that she can't help doing. Could you imagine if Hope was like, let's add that to the PowerPoint? Excuse
what
me?
Year is it?
How old am I? This is how the podcast breaks up.
This is the last episode of Supergirl Radio. You want a Kryptonian? You got one.
Is it a movie about saving Argo? The answer to that one is no. It's called Witch for a Summer! ! Where does she want to go? Ask her. Talk to her. Really commune with flat Supergirl.
Did we set the bar too high or too low?
I think we set the bar real medium.
You're doing an intensely adequate podcast.
Good.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Noyce, and you're listening to Supergirl Radio.
McGurk, I love
not
typing.
mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because
She looks like a boss in this coat.
Is Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Welcome to Supergirl Radio, your source for all things related to the CW's Supergirl TV series, or in this case, back in 2016, CBS's Supergirl TV series and the character of Kara Zor-El. My name is Rebecca Johnson.
I'm Morgan Glennon.
And for this episode of the podcast, we are live and wired on the Supergirl Radio Facebook page and the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel to go back in time for maybe the last time. Maybe there will be a rewind in the future. I don't know. But for right now, this will be our final time in the rewind of season 1, discussing the 20th and final episode of season 1 titled Better Angels. If you are interested in listening to Supergirl Radio's original discussion from season 1, the link should be in the video description below the live stream and will be in the audio podcast show notes. And Morgan, we don't really have any news for this week this time around.
No.
So I guess we shall just go ahead and get in the Legion Cruiser. Buckle in.
You gotta buckle up
You
as
got-
always.
You gotta buckle
Safety
up
first.
Yes. So we're gonna buckle up and go back to what is the date? Is that April 18th? That can't be right. Is that right? That doesn't seem
seems
right.
pretty early.
That seems wrong. I might have that wrong.
Yeah.
Or did the Arrowverse wiki have it wrong?
Twist.
They say April 18th, 2016. Now I'm hesitating in my Google Doc. Now I have to go look this up. Now I have to. Has the Arrowverse wiki
I'm
failed
also
us?
seeing April 18th, 2016.
From
that's
Google. That seems right, because our original episode from season 1, we published that on April 20th, 2016. So I guess I'm sorry for the way in which I have disrespected the Arrowverse wiki for possibly being wrong. They are correct. They are correct. This episode originally aired on April 18th, 2016. So let's go back to that date and talk about the finale. All right, so we are now back in April. What is it? April 18th,
18th. How did you forget the day, Rebecca?
It has been so long ago, or not long enough, I guess. We're in the present, we're in the past. I don't know.
We're in all the places.
Let's talk about the episode. So this is the season 1 finale called Better Angels, and this is the official description of the episode. Quote, Supergirl is forced to do battle with an unexpected foe and must risk everything, including her life, to prevent Non and Indigo from destroying every person on the planet, unquote.
Whoa.
With headaches, apparently, is the ultimate downfall of humanity, is just really bad headaches.
Listen, bad headaches are no joke.
They can be crippling. So imagine what they do if they are driven by Myriad. So I guess that's kind of later on in the episode. So let's kind of start off at the top. So we're continuing the Supergirl versus Alex fight, which was teased at the end of the penultimate episode. So Morgan, what did you think? How did you think that went down in how it resolved itself?
I thought that the fight was really awesome. I thought it was really interesting because obviously Alex has a kryptonite sword and she's got kryptonite on her armor, so that kind of takes away Kara's advantage. So then it just kind of becomes like Alex versus Kara, and like, as big as a Supergirl fan as I am, like, Alex has kind of spent like years of her life, who knows how many. Time really works in kind of like a pocket dimension vortex for Alex Danvers in terms of like her age and what she's accomplished. So she's spent a question mark amount of years, like, training and like getting her fight skills up to par. And like Kara's been doing this for like about a year, and she did like one sparring match with Alex, and she was like, I'm good.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I got it. So, I mean, I think that, like, if you took away Supergirl's powers from Kara and you're just like, fight your sister, Kara's going down hard. And I think and we see that in this fight, which I thought was good, because I think that's kind of realistic. If you take away all of her powers and you give Alex a kryptonite sword and kind of put them on not even like a level playing field, like Alex has a little bit of an advantage. Like, yeah, Alex is probably gonna take that one. So I thought like it was very, it was a little edge of your seat, because you're like, how is she gonna get out of this one? And it turns out just like getting pep talk from her mom. It's like her mom comes and she's like, Alex Danvers, don't you dare stab your sister. We have talked about this.
Do we know what Alex's middle name is? Because you know how like moms, like when they when they're
Alex
really
Marie
serious,
Danvers.
when they're really serious, they say your middle
You put
name.
that knife down and you stop killing your sister.
Yeah, Alex at one point I think cuts Kara. Supergirl gets like the blade on her, so it's pretty serious. Supergirl tried to, I think, eventually get to the point where she's like, I'm not going to hit you, I'm not going to fight you, but I'm going to try to bend this big steel bar.
That was my favorite.
Around
and then,
you
Alex,
and
like,
stop
throws
you.
it off. She's like, get off of that with this.
She's like, if I can just wrap you up on this, you will stop trying to fight me. So I enjoyed that. Now, I had a thought this time around that I did not have in the first. Well, I mean, I've seen this episode many times, but the first discussion I think that we had, I don't remember having this thought. Maybe if I went back and listened to the episode, I'd be like, oh, I just copied myself again. But this feels like a new thought that I had, that for Helen Slater to play Eliza Danvers, coming into the scene and sort of hope speeching Alex out of wanting to kill Kara, I thought was very fitting, because it's like she was giving a Supergirl hope speech.
You're right. She was like, Alex, you just gotta hope. Your father and I, we believed in you so much. You wouldn't believe it, but one day your father, he turned to me and he said, if I ever go missing, and only one of my daughters can find me, I know that it's going to be Alex, and I know she would never stop looking. Yeah, I feel like that snapped her out. She was like, oh, Dad. It's kind of like sometimes, like, you're thinking about something else, or you're like kind of like sad, and then you remember like the one thing you have to do, and you're like, you sit up from bed and you're like, oh no, I forgot to, I never sent that person a happy birthday, or you like remember I forgot the card. She sort of snapped out of her murderous rage by being like, right, I was gonna look for my dad. Why do I keep forgetting about this? And spoiler alert, won't be the first time.
No, Jeremiah's going to be forgotten quite a bit. But I just like that. Helen Slater played Supergirl. So for her to deliver a Supergirl hope speech, I thought was very fitting. And then not too long after that, Supergirl, our Supergirl of the show, she goes to give a hope speech. Not too long after that. And what I thought was really funny about Helen Slater bits in this episode is that Supergirl goes into the beat up television studio or radio studio. I don't know what it was. They had television cameras there, but it sort of seemed like, I don't know. So it was an old broadcast television studio, I guess. But she has a clipboard. She was like carrying a clipboard while she was in the studio with Supergirl. So my question was, and this is something I don't think I had thought about before, was she helping Supergirl draft the hope speech?
I like that. She was like, no, Kara, you're doing such a great job. Have you mentioned that they need to hope, though? I know in the previous sentence you said you have to hope, but what if in this sentence you said don't lose hope? Like that's like
Oh.
it's like a different one. And she's like, yeah, okay, mom, I'm like taking it down. I'm taking it down. She's like, the original draft of the speech like said hope like twice, and then Eliza's like, you gotta get it in more than that. Like they're not gonna know what this speech is about if you don't say it.
Yeah, so I know they were under a crunch time, but I feel like they could have gone through a couple more drafts.
No, that was the one. Eliza's like, no, I feel it. This is the one. And
We
and
got
Carter's
it.
just like, I'm not arguing with my mom. No.
So I thought that was funny that she, like, why was she carrying around the clipboard if not to help write the speech?
It's the only thing that makes sense to me.
So I don't know if I like it where like it is one thing if Supergirl is just sort of improvising and she's speaking from the heart. But if it's this, she's got a speechwriter back there who's given her the words, I don't know. Maybe they also had to like strategize about how to communicate through the myriad thing. Maybe saying hope a lot is what would like break through it. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. It was like, oh, Helen Slater, I think her Eliza Danvers also helped contribute to the hope speech.
She was in there. She was working it.
I guess that makes sense because she's the one who knew how to get through out to Alex, and Alex broke free of it. So she's like, I've already done it once. I feel like I can help you do it again.
I feel like Eliza's like some of her edits were like, mention that one time that your father told, and she's like, no, people. It worked on Alex because she knows dad. Like they don't know dad. And she's like, all right, well, like I guess like maybe just like have a quote or something. Like don't attribute it, but no, it's your father said it. She's like, yeah. She's like striking it out. Gotcha, mom, gotcha.
Yeah.
I love the idea of her like desperate. Like there's not a lot of time left, and like the city's going down, and her mom is like, I just think, sweetheart, that you should just say it with like a little more pizzazz.
She becomes like a stage mom.
Like a stage mom. She's like, just wait, let's take it one more time from the top, but this time give me energy. Like really unlock something about Eliza that she didn't realize was in there.
Really, she had gone into the science field, but really, I think she was an entertainment arts person. So she really, I think, went into the wrong career path. New Rachel makes a good point. We have all three Supergirls in this episode.
Ooh.
So not only do we have Eliza Danvers, we have Laura Vandervoort. So we will talk about Indigo, RIP Indigo, but we will get there when we talk about her.
I think this is a funny comment from the chat. CM Gutierrez said, if you think about it, the third Kara, Laura Vanderhoort, Hope speeched non to going to the Myriad Plan B. She was like, don't give up. We can still use Myriad this time for more of a like a light murder feel. But don't just
murder.
Yeah, don't just throw away all your hopes and dreams.
That's pretty funny. So the Supergirls really delivering the hope speeches in this episode. Some more positive, some more negative. But Morgan, what do you think about the fact that the hope speech gets everybody out initially? I mean, they solved it in about the first 10 minutes of the episode. Everybody sees the Supergirl S shield. They snap out of it. Hope, hope, hope. So what do you think about that? All that does it make sense that it's like a certain part of your brain that connects to hope and optimism that was turned
the hope
off?
section of your brain? Listen, I'm not a scientist, so I can't pretend to like understand all of the stuff that Maxwell Lord just dropped in the episode. Like exposition dropped very, very quickly, but I imagine by the amount of how fast he got through that dialogue that it's probably not something that would hold up. Like he was clearly powering through because he's like, don't think about it. Makes sense, right? Makes sense. I don't know that we have a hope portion of our brain. I don't think that's fact, but sure with the like how they resolve this. I also don't know how they got everybody's cell phone to light up with the Supergirl or Superman or House of L symbol. Also, I don't know that would mean a lot to everyone. Like what if you were just kind of like, yeah, Supergirl's all right, right? like Supergirl's fun. And then you get like the Supergirl symbol on your phone, and you're just like, okay.
But it's not so much the symbol, it's the words. It's Eliza's, draft of poetic language that really sells it, I think.
Yeah, I will say this becomes something of a motif in the series where Kara solves the end of the season problem by staring into a camera somewhere and just giving a hope speech. And like by the time that she gives her sixth hope speech, she's got it pretty down. Honestly, she's not putting a lot of heart and soul into it anymore. It's kind of by the numbers at that point. I will say
She doesn't need Eliza anymore.
she doesn't need Eliza anymore. She's like, Mom, I can write my own hope speeches. Like, they have been killing once per year. I think this one worked the best for me because it was a new novel idea. And we had kind of seen her use sort of her power of like positive thinking and optimism and like belief in people to, overcome obstacles before. So for season 1, like, yes, do I think it's a little bit like, we all believe and everybody believes together and like, we'll all do it. Yeah, all right, yeah. But I will say that they did have the second like backup problem where she had to, first she uses her optimism and then she uses her big old muscles to fly something out into space. So it worked for me in this finale. I will say it like the returns on the host speech began diminishing from this point on. Like I feel like a hope speech that beams into everyone's living room is a thing you really only can do once. It's hokey the first time. It's not gonna get less cheesy. It is only gonna get more cheesy. Like I'll go with you for that ride on the first one, but by the fifth, I'm like, come on, guys, like a different way to solve these problems.
Yeah, I do like the balance of, like you mentioned, she is an active participant in the action by the end of it, where she's like the only way to get Myriad out, because the hope speech was a temporary solution. Non and Indigo decided, okay, we can't brainwash these people. We're just going to kill everybody. And so that is when Myriad becomes really serious because everything gets progressively worse with their headaches, and she has to physically remove Fort Roz because that's where the signal is coming from, and she has to fly it out into space, actually risking her life. There are consequences to being out there. So I actually really appreciate that. It wasn't just she solved it by looking into a camera. She did play an active role in the solving of the problem. And that's partially because nobody else could do it. Superman is still out for the count. This is when we see his infamous boots in the DEO, and so it's only something I think it is kind of stupid in a way because they don't make a good enough excuse as to why Superman is out for the count.
No,
but I do appreciate making Supergirl the only one who can save the day. I do appreciate that. I wish they had made that a little better because it's like, well, Myriad's fixed. But Superman, for some reason, we don't know why, he's still not able. He hasn't snapped out of it. You would think that Kara's hope speech could snap him out of it, but it doesn't work on Superman for some reason.
No, he's like, "Ugh, I've heard this from you. This doesn't do anything for me." If I was Kara at the end, I would have like IM'd him and been like, "Oh, so my speech isn't good enough for you?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'll see you at Christmas." Slams the laptop down.
Yeah, so she is actually the only one who can save the day. Now, I do have a lot of questions about the pod and Alex being able to pilot it up there. So, Morgan, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that?
So I had many questions about that. First off, how did she pilot it? How did she know how to pilot it? It's alien technology, and the only Kryptonian is Kara, and she's in space. So who told her that? Maybe Kara had like written a manual or something, just in case of emergencies. These are the beep bop boops that you hit. Yeah, my for some reason I bought her flying the pod into space. I don't know why it didn't occur to me, like, how does she know how to drive this thing? I was like, of course she does. She's Alex Danvers. Where I kind of got it lost was like, she didn't seem to have any kind of like protective gear on.
Like an astronaut helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, first off, how does she get Kara into the pod to go back home? Is if she's opening up what only looks like there's like one thing that opens up, which is like the top or like even a side door. Like, isn't the depressurization going to be a problem for her? The lack of oxygen going to be a problem for her? How did she just fish her out of the sky? Like, what? How did this?
Maybe it was like a maybe like something came out of the ship and just kind of grabbed onto her, like those things that
just like a gashapon.
Yeah, like a little one of those games where you can use the pinchers to get the stuffed animals out.
Could you?
Maybe it was
now I'm
like
mad that we didn't see that whole scene where she's like trying to get Kara, but the
she keeps missing.
The pincher won't quite close enough, and then Kara goes spinning off into space, and she's like, "All right, no, one more time, and then one more dollar. It's all I need." She finally gets Kara, and she's like, yeah. I feel like that was a missing scene. But yeah, I felt like I had like a lot of questions about like, well, how'd she get her in the ship? That pod is not very big is my issue. It's like it looks like it's big enough for like an Alex Danvers. I also think that like the mental image of like it's not really big enough for like two full-grown women. So like Alex was probably like trying to maneuver it while like Kara was like on her lap or something. So she's just like, oh my God, if she could just move her head.
I buy it to the extent that I'm sure the DEO has studied the pod. They have it in the DEO, so they probably have had some scientists go in there and study it all. So I think that's something that I can buy. Maybe it has like an auto pilot function. Maybe Kellex. Maybe they somehow contacted Kellex and he was able to like remotely drive it. So I it's a little silly, but I mean you can justify it, I think.
I do like this headcanon from CM Gutierrez, who says, I always thought that Alex bumped Kara back into the Earth's atmosphere, like playing soccer with her. Could you imagine? Just like boop, boop, boop.
But how would you do that, though? Wouldn't she just like float away? You would need something to like push her down, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Even if you could get her. Also, like she would just be plummeting to Earth unconscious, like a projectile. Like wouldn't she?
She'd be like a meteorite coming down.
Like, wouldn't that really hurt when she woke up the next morning? Like, oh, why does my body hurt? And Alex is like, you don't want to hear about the small village you destroyed when you landed.
I don't know. I think my claw theory.
I think the claw theory is solid.
I think it checks out. I think that is the only way that checks off all the boxes where Alex can breathe in the pod. And Supergirl doesn't have to get in there, but she's still attached, and they can go down. I think.
And like, and now when Supergirl goes to the boardwalk, for some reason she just can't play the claw games, and she's not sure why. She's like, "Oh my God, I don't know why, but this makes me very anxious."
Now, one thing about this episode that I had kind of forgotten was the fact that Kara goes around to everyone she knows and starts saying goodbye to them as if she is going to die. She believes that she might be going up into space and that will be her end. She will die. So she's going around to say her goodbyes to Kat and to Wynn and to James. So Morgan, what are your thoughts about that?
I mean, as like a storytelling maneuver, I thought it was really good. It allowed us to kind of like reconnect with the characters that she's closest to. We got some flashbacks to earlier in the season and, why she's like so close to these characters, Wynn and James and Kat and everybody. And John. In a practical sense, she knew that everybody's heads were going to explode in 4 hours.
In 4 hours, yeah.
And she spent like, I'd say 90% of that at work eating donuts and like going on a goodbye tour. And I was like, I don't know, and maybe I'm harsh, but shouldn't you get on this? Shouldn't you be on this? Because it's so funny.
She changed into work appropriate clothing and went to
Yes.
Catco.
I went to Catco and was like talking to people. I was like, well, now it's 3 hours 59, lady. Come on. And it's so funny because like when we get to the fight with Non and Indigo, almost immediately there's only 5 minutes until everyone's head explodes. And I was like, first off, you and I, we all know this is not how time works, because that fight, even some of the conversations she was having with people were not 5 minutes long. Like, she went way over. Everybody's head should have like been exploding left, right. It should have been very upsetting to watch on CBS. But yeah, I was like, well, yeah, of course you only have 5 minutes now. You spent a lot of time breaking up with James. That was time you could have been problem solving.
And the fight between Non and Indigo and Supergirl and Martian Manhunter, it didn't last that long. They could have knocked that out in 15 minutes. So they were kind of going around wasting a lot of time. I think it is interesting. Lindsay points out in the chat, did anyone notice Carr didn't have any final words for Eliza?
Ooh, yeah.
Scandalous.
I will say she also didn't do any final words for Alex, because she was like, if I have to say goodbye to Alex, like, I'm not going to want to leave.
She still did communicate with Alex right before she went up.
Right before
Rest.
it seemed like it was lights out. Yeah, she was like, hey, so sorry, we didn't have a chance to do the whole heart to heart. Let's do it now. And Alex is like, I mean, in 30 seconds, my head is going to explode. But if you wanted to do it now, I guess we could do it now.
But to Lindsay's point about Eliza, Supergirl does talk to Alex about Jeremiah, and that she has all these thoughtful things to say about, whenever you find him, tell him that I still wear the glasses that he made for me and all this kind of stuff. And I was like,
oh my God, you're right.
Well, it seemed like Supergirl was really very emotionally connected to Jeremiah, which I thought was interesting. And maybe that's because they were trying to play up the storyline that Alex was going to find her father. But
yeah, I mean, they were clearly leaning on like, this is going to be the big thing next year. Don't worry about it. And you should have been worried about it. It was not the big thing next year. But yeah, like anything to Eliza, and then give Eliza a thumbs up for me. Thanks for all the wonderful years of being my mom.
And
oh no!
And
did it cut off? No one heard that.
Speechwriter and proofreader.
Tell my mom thanks for that sick speech.
Yeah, so she did try to talk to everybody before she went. And Kat Grant, I thought was interesting when she talked to Kat. Kat sort of saw it as like a suicide note. And that's kind of, I mean, not entirely what it was like, but Supergirl thought she was gonna die. And so it wasn't necessarily a eulogy for Kat, but it was, Carr thinking she was about to meet her end. So Kat was pretty perceptive in that way.
Kat kind of knows what's up. Yeah, Kat was like well, I feel like anytime somebody like just walks into like a room that you're in without any kind of preamble and was just like, did you ever know that and you're like, what is happening here? Like, why are you saying so many nice things about me? What's going on? Like, I would have also been like immediately suspicious in a way that Wynn wasn't. He just was like, yeah, compliments are sick.
Well,
but like
from Wynn's perspective, though, he always wanted Carr to say some nice things to him.
That's true. And he just appreciated the nice gestures, whereas Kat was like, "What's going on? What's up with you?"
And let's see. New Rachel in the chat says, "I'm still bitter that Jean ripped Indigo in half, and she still never got brought back when the show brought in another Brainiac." So, as a reminder, if people have forgotten, Indigo is Brainiac 8, so she is a Brainiac tied to Brainiac 5 in that way. And so I do think that it's a missed opportunity not to have the Brainiacs together. But she clearly got ripped in half, which is not, she could be put back together. I think they could have fixed her. Maxwell Lord could have fixed her up probably. But she did sort of, I don't want to say die, because she's mostly like electronic, but I think like her system or whatever shut off. Like she faded out.
I really want it, like when you see that like half of hers in one place and half of hers in the other place. I really wanted her to be like crawling back to her other half to be like, I'm gonna put myself back together, don't you? I mean, she did get like her final last like villain line in there, which I really appreciate it. But like, yeah, I would have loved it if she was just like shoving her like halves of her body back together while she was doing that. That would have been hilarious.
I would have liked a more open-ended ending for her. Like, is she still out there? Do we know? So I'm kind of sad that it seemed like she did die.
Yeah, I see a question from Aaron who says, if Kat knew she's Supergirl, how did she not find that last talk more concerning?
That's a good question, because we've debated that all throughout the season. But I don't know. I feel like Kat maybe sensed that something was serious, but I think she knew she would be fine. Like, I think Kat probably thought Kara would be fine.
I think that's probably true too, as well. I think I'm all totally on board with like the Kat knew the whole time train, and I think that like honestly, it's more concerning if she's not Supergirl. She just like randomly like walks into your office and is like, "I just want you to know, in case I don't tell you again in the future, that you have been like a mentor to me." Like, then it's like, what's happening with you? Like, what's going? Whereas if she's Supergirl, like she's like facing down death every other week. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of an old hat thing. That felt like a very Cat thing to do, where she barely looks up and she's just like, "Okay."
Well, didn't that happen in World's Finest, where Kara like fell out the Catco window, and later on Kat doesn't even address it.
Kat doesn't even get, "Oh, you're alive." She's like very casual about it. So I can really see it as being the same thing where she's like, "Oh my God, Kira is so dramatic. Just save the day already. Don't make a whole song and dance about it."
Yeah, I think if anything, it just reinforces the fact that maybe she knows. I often wonder, because I think some of our listeners have pointed out that at certain points of season 1, the writer said, no, she doesn't know. But I think Callista played it as if she did.
Definitely.
Even
I
if they
think that
didn't
she
intend it in the
definitely
writing, I think Callista played it that way.
that's how I kind of took it too. And then I think, looking at it from like a perspective of having seen a little bit more of the show, and later on she just kind of already knows the secret. I can definitely see, like, I think that makes a better case for like, well, yeah, she like always knew the secret. Like, of course she did. Because like the next time when she pops up later in the future, she's like, "Oh yeah, I knew you were Supergirl."
Yeah. Well, and I guess while we're here and talking about Kat and Kara, there was a big moment in this episode that even rewatching it for this rewind episode, it kind of shocked me, because it always kind of it makes me go, oh, that was good. And it's the moment where she turns around and looks at Kara and she says her name correctly for the first time. She doesn't call her Kira. She doesn't call her Kara. She calls her Kara. And that still, I think, holds up as a great moment in the episode. So, Morgan, what do you think about her knowing how to pronounce her name? Maybe she always did. I don't know. And then B, what do you think about Kat giving her an office?
Yeah, I love that moment in the show. I love her pronouncing Kara's name right, because I think she probably kind of always knew how to pronounce Kara's name and was just kind of doing it on purpose.
Just a power play.
Just a power play. But also I think she just like at some point was just like, "Oh, it's fun to mess with this girl." It was like, she's like, I'm so busy and I have to get my joy in the small ways and at other people's expense when I can. But yeah, I loved that moment with Kat and Kara, and her saying like, "You've been a great assistant," which is just fundamentally not true. And and basically giving her kind of like the keys of the kingdom and saying like, "I'm going to give you an office. I'm going to give you a promotion. You let me know what you want to do next. Like, where do you want to take your career?" And I think that's so cool and so interesting, like a direction. If I was Kara, I'd be way more mad about her being like, "It's gonna be the same money, but like obviously you're getting more responsibility." I'd be like, "Excuse me, I'm
That's
also
not how
getting
that
more
works.
money as well."
Yeah.
Then, but I did like, that she got an office, and it was honestly a huge office, but it has no windows, so it's like a little tomb downstairs that she got.
Well, Kat
Which
did say that windows could be coming. If she played her
Exactly.
cards right.
That's what she's gotta work for, is getting a window, being able to see what time it is outside.
Or possibly more importantly, opening up the window so she can fly out. See, I think
That's
Kat
gonna be
I think
key.
Kat that's another piece of evidence I think that Kat knows. She knows
She
that Kara needs a window.
she's like, "It's gonna be a lot harder to get out there now, so maybe you'll have to, like, I don't know, reveal yourself."
Yeah, so I had a question for you, Morgan, because I think when the first time we discussed this, I had not watched Working Girl. And I was curious because
I have
I did
also not watched Working Girl.
okay, so I watched it for this discussion, for this rewind discussion, because I wanted to know what were the similarities. And so I was curious if you had also watched it because I've heard about Working Girl my whole life. It was a big movie in the 80s. It was, like a pretty popular movie. It was kind of, I don't want to say it wasn't groundbreaking, but it was a pretty famous movie from the 1980s. And I watched it, and there are some similarities where Melanie Griffith's character is the assistant to Sigourney Weaver's character. So Sigourney Weaver is this like high powered stockbroker, something or other. I don't really know what they did. Something about stocks and deals or whatever. So Sigourney Weaver's this high-powered executive, and Melanie Griffith plays Tess, who is her assistant. And by the end of the episode, or the end of the movie, I don't want to spoil it for people, but it is, probably close to 40 years old. I don't know exactly when in the 80s it came out. But at the end of the film, Sigourney Weaver's character gets in a little bit of trouble, and Tess has been doing these deals while Sigourney Weaver's character is out with her leg broken and all this kind of stuff. And so Melanie Griffith sort of takes over and she becomes the executive while Sigourney Weaver's not there. So she's getting deals done. And she kind of she sort of has an affair, I would say, because there's a whole like drama in the film where Sigourney Weaver's character is wanting to get married to Harrison Ford's character. Well, Harrison Ford's character is not really into it. And so he meets Melanie Griffith and they spark up a romance. So anyway, it's a whole thing. But by the end of the film, Tess, the former assistant who had started the film as the assistant, ended up with her own office, with her own assistant. And so she became, of course, by the end of the film, she became the new Sigourney Weaver. So that's sort of Working Girl in a nutshell. Hopefully all that made sense. So I can see the similarities to it that in Working Girl, she, at the end of it, she gets her office and it's kind of a big deal for her because she had not achieved that kind of success before. And so here in the Supergirl season 1 finale, Kara has gotten the office and has been an assistant. So she's kind of in that same sort of test position. So I thought the similarities were good. And now I'm wondering if that was the intention the whole time. If I could ask Ali Adler some questions, I would be like, okay, so Working Girl, is that how you started the season? Was that your pitch for what Kara was going to be? Like how you were going to portray her? Was she going to be the Melanie Griffith in this show? So I don't know. I thought it was interesting. Although I did not think Working Girl was that great. Like it was okay. It was fine.
It's one of those things where I've heard the name, but it's not exactly like a cultural touchstone for me. Or I think a lot of people. So I was like, oh, okay. I assume that somebody gets an office in Working Girl at the end, but that's all I knew about it.
Yeah, and in the scene they talk about Kara says the end of Working Girl always makes me cry. And now that I've seen it, I'm like, why? What is this?
She just loved that office.
It's not an emotional ending. Maybe I'm just a cold-hearted person, but I was like, why?
She finally did it. She climbed that corporate ladder.
Oh my gosh. Most of those characters are just miserable people. I didn't really, and not to say, I mean, the film was good. You can watch a film and say that it was good and still not like it. Like it's still
exactly. It's like, All right, sure.
It was well made. I did not care for it. So let's see, Daryl.
Put Working Girl on my list of movies that I need to watch at some point.
I think in order to understand that scene with The Office on Supergirl, I think you have to watch. Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should watch Working Girl.
A Working Girl. That would be fun. I love a good 80s movie, and I assume the shoulder pads are like linebacker.
Oh, the
high.
hair. It's not the shoulder pads, it's the hair.
It's the hair?
Morgan, the hair.
I always say that I missed my decade because my hair gets so poofy, and in the 80s I would have killed it. I would have been the coolest girl around. Everybody would have been like, how does she get that volume? And I'll be like, I don't know, bad genetics. But no, I grew up in a different time when that wasn't super cool.
Oh my gosh, the hair really. I'm gonna show you a picture. I'm just gonna set this up and I'm gonna get your honest reaction. So this is Joan Cusack, who is like a national treasure. She's a fantastic
Love
actress.
Joan Cusack.
Joan Cusack is great in everything she's ever been in. And I just want to show you some pictures if I can pull it up of Joan Cusack's hair.
I'm really excited to see it because the 80s hair was just sort of its own thing. Like it had its own life. It had its own zip code almost.
See, this hairstyle I thought was only in the South. And so to see this in like I think Daryl says this was 1988 when it came out. To see these hairstyles in 1988 New York City was a real shocker for me. So let me try to see if I can pull up Joan Cusack from Working Girl. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. So I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, so much is happening. Wow. It is big. It is feathered. It is feathered up and then away, but also it is also protecting. It protect, it attack. It's sort of like framing her face, but also it's got sort of its own gravity, its own geography. God, it's so beautiful. So much is happening there with that hair. She's like a proud lion with that. The makeup also. Can we just take a moment?
Yeah, I wish I could make this bigger for you, but hopefully you can see the eyeshadow.
Admire what is going on with the eyeshadow, because nothing says I am a professional working girl like blue eyeshadow, and not just blue eyeshadow. It's like blue. There's like that. It's like a eyeshadow mullet. There's like a party in the blue spot, and then it just kind of fades out to like, I don't know, like a dark brown or like a red at the corners. She looks both like a clown, but like an evil one, like an evil clown. It's what they did to Joan Cusack in this movie. Should be illegal. But I love it.
Let me see if I can pull up a bigger picture of that.
How much hairspray do you think that she used?
Oh yeah, that's better. That's a little bigger.
Oh my god. I forgot to mention when mentioning the eyeshadow. I really overlooked the lipstick. Usually what they say is like a rule of thumb is that you want to go bold like one place, right? When you're doing your makeup. So like a bold eye or a bold lip, both gives you a clown aspect that you're not usually going for. But Joan Cusack was like, give me the clown. Let's go full clown on this. Can the hair be higher? Can the earrings be bigger? Okay, there's a lot happening.
Let me see if I can find Melanie Griffith just for comparison. We're really sidetracking here, but
this is important to me.
But since you had not watched it,
this is what the people come here for. Boardroom or ballroom, working girl is what we're here for.
Okay, so just to compare, so that's Joan Cusack, who was a working girl. She worked in an office. So just keep that in mind. So here is Melanie Griffith from the same movie. So this is her look when she starts off.
Oh God. Why were the 80s so much like, hey, how big can you get the top of your hair? and somebody was like, "Oh, like the bottom too," and they're like, "No, just the top, just the top." We want like a weird illusion, like you're carrying around your own halo at all times. Like, well, I don't really understand what's happening here. The hair has sort of a life of its own. It's so far off of the top of her head, and then when it gets down to her shoulders, it becomes normal hair again. So it's like it's not even a mullet, and yet that's the only word I can use to describe like what's happening. It's a lot. This couldn't have been popular in the 80s, right? That's
almost
that bad hair?
almost every woman in this movie looks
No.
like that.
This is 88 too. You would think like the 90s were just around the corner. She was so close to having avoided this.
Okay, to be fair to Melanie Griffith, because we've been dragging her a little bit. There is a transformation that happens to Tess in the film. She stops being the assistant and she sort of schemes her way to the top and starts making deals while her boss is out.
Oh yeah, she's making money moves.
So she then starts to look like this. She gets her hair cut.
Okay,
She's wearing business suits. So she does change her look.
Okay, I'm on board with this look. This look is nice. She's got the natural hair. It's still got a little volume. It's still the 80s, but like yeah, she looks like she's maybe going to like a fancy black tie event. You know, it's the 80s, so like, and she's a businesswoman, so she obviously has to be dressed like a man. You can't do business in a dress. That's crazy talk. So she has to have the full suit on. That was a prescription of the 80s, but she's pulling it off. It's looking good.
So that's really funny that you mentioned that, because if you do watch Working Girl, I can't find a good picture of it that I can pull it up for you. But there is a scene in the movie where Melanie Griffith's character meets Harrison Ford's character, and the whole reason that he is attracted to her is because she's the only one at this fancy party who is dressed like a woman, that he would be attracted to, because the rest of them are in the suits and things.
They're
like
in
that.
their power. They're in their power.
But she's like in a nice, like a party dress.
But she didn't realize she hadn't climbed to the top of the ladder yet. She was like
this is still this is like beginnings of the ladder.
Yeah, so she doesn't know. She didn't know that in the 80s, like a man couldn't take you seriously unless you had like a whole pillow in your shoulder. Unless you look like you could physically tackle him, a man was not going to listen to what you're going to say. But she hadn't realized that yet. She gets there, it seems like, by the end of the movie.
So I think, Morgan, is what I'm hearing is I feel like we should do a Working Girl episode of Supergirl.
I feel like this is a good idea.
Okay, so my pitch is Valentine's Day.
Yes,
themed, because we did Pretty in Pink one year, because
this is a 1988 Harrison Ford. Yes, I say yes to this. Yes to Working Girl, yes to love, yes to Harrison Ford.
So AJ Potts, we're gonna try it. We're gonna I don't know if we'll do like a watch party. We could do commentary, but then you won't be able to like soak in the film.
I don't know that Working Girl is such a cultural touchstone that they'll be like, oh yes, that scene.
So maybe we'll just do a regular episode, a review where we watch it and then we discuss it. But I think we've had a really productive conversation about Working Girl and its connections to Supergirl.
Oh my God, I just saw the best picture from Working Girl. It's just like, it's Joan Cusack and Melody Griffin, and they're in just like what appears to be a room with just hair. Like just hair is everywhere.
Okay,
all I see is hair in this photo.
So this is what I was talking about. Every female, every female character in this movie looks like that.
This is definitely when we started depleting that hole in the ozone, for sure. This is when this started, like in earnest. Yes, Laura said the hole in the ozone layer grew exponentially because of 80s hair.
Yeah, it is quite something. Like I said, I thought this was just like a Southern U.S. thing, so this was quite eye-opening. I mean, I lived through this decade. I'm not going to say how old I was in this decade, but like I should have remembered this, but I don't know. Maybe I've like repressed 80s 80s hair on
I
ladies.
remember the hair being like very intense, but it's one thing to remember it, and it's another thing to see it. Like this is intense hair.
It is quite something. So, yeah. So the working
So,
girl.
but you didn't cry. You didn't cry at the end.
I
When
did.
she finally got her office.
I was not. I mean, I was like, I guess maybe she's earned it because she made some moves that made some money and she impressed some people. So I guess that deserved to be rewarded by the end, although she was kind of going around what her bosses, her boss's wishes were. But whatever, it's her Cinderella story. But Daryl agrees, saying you're right. It's not too emotional of an ending. Yeah, it's not. It's like she got a big high rise office.
But I mean,
Okay,
I feel like to Cat Grant, I can see Cat Grant crying at the end of that. Kara, I don't see crying at the end of that. But for Cat, I could imagine her being like, she made it, baby. Like
she finally got her big office as an executive.
So beautiful. God, being executive is so great. Like I can't imagine that.
I'm so glad she finally got her own assistant. Yeah. So Kat, I think, would enjoy that. Kara, yeah. But what I like about Kara mentioning Working Girl is that there's a thread throughout all of Supergirl as a show. It sort of stops at some point, maybe halfway, but there's a lot of mentions of movies that Kara watches. Kara is a classic film fan. Her favorite movie is The Wizard of Oz. And so for her to have watched Working Girl, I think is actually very appropriate for her to mention that because Kara Danvers seems to be a pretty big movie fan.
That is true.
So I like that she mentions that. Although I don't understand the emotional to the point of crying is the thing. Like even if you thought, hey, good for her, she got that office. Are you still gonna? Maybe I'm the
tears
people.
Begin. Oh, the office is so beautiful.
I'm judging people. But anyway, so the office though. If we were to look into the future, we never see that office again.
Erin points this out in the chat. She said, the office we never see again. And Daryl mentions the Supergirl wiki page for season 2 premiere said that the set designers just decided not to remake those sets.
What? That was it?
They thought about it and then they were like, LOL, nah.
That is because then if it's story wise, then you go into season 2 and you're like, well, did Kara not get that promotion?
Yeah.
Because she's not in the office. Does she not? Is everything just the same?
Well, it's funny too, because arguably if Kat had stayed around, having Kara in that office would have been logistically hard to tell stories with because you would have to have her like constantly just walking into Cat Grant's office, which she definitely would do. Like she doesn't respect any authority. But in season 2, spoiler alert, like we lose Cat like pretty early on, and so there's really no reason for her not to have the office.
Seems like that would be really helpful for Supergirl business. New Rachel says immediately Snapper comes in and is like, you don't even deserve a chair. So there is that. There's some more Working Girl comments I wanted to bring up. AJ Pot says that maybe Kat got emotional about it because she worked her way up. I think that's fair. And then also Laura asks, do we not think the Working Girl mention was a nod to Callista Flockhart and Harrison Ford being married? I think it absolutely was. Yeah, there are a couple of Star Wars references as well. I think she even says something about how Harrison Ford is calling her.
Yes,
I think one of the episodes.
She makes a joke about like Harrison Ford wanting to go out on a date with her, but that he's married. And I thought that was funny in a very dark way because it's like, oh my God, is he cheating on Callista with Callista?
Yeah, so that's definitely a nod to Harrison Ford on behalf of Callista Flockhart. Okay, well, Morgan, are there any other things that well, I guess we could talk about the ending of this episode.
Oh, yes.
So this is, if you can rewind back to season 1 and not look ahead, you would not know that the cliffhanger would be repeated. But
over and over again, much like the Hope speech themselves. I feel like that they liked the season 1 finale so much, they were like, "That's it, baby. We got our finales for the rest of the series." No, it doesn't have to be that way.
Were you still shocked by the cliffhanger?
I was surprised by the cliffhanger. So they're all so happy and they're having like a fun dinner, and Kara and James finally kissed and they're like, it's so amazing to be into each other this way. We'll never feel differently. We're always going to have this passion that we have in this moment, and it's never going to leave us in a weird, strange way that people can't track. And then, of course, something flies out of the sky. What is it? It's a pod. Who could it be? Well, she says it's Kryptonian, which, sure.
She says it looks just like hers.
That's okay.
Or
yes.
it's either identical or similar to hers.
I like that when she opens the lid, she's like, "Oh my God." And you're like, who is it? It must be somebody she recognizes. It must be very dramatic because she said, "Oh my God," like that. And then later on, you just like learn it's Monel. And it was like, what was the "oh my God" about? Was she like, "Oh my God, you're pretty hot"? That's when she starts rethinking the James thing. She's like, "Well, you know what? I didn't know that I had this option here that just landed on my doorstep. And now I don't know. Now I don't know so much about us." Like it does. I feel like in retrospect, her reaction makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if they did not know who was in the pod until they started breaking the season, like the summer before.
Oh, 100%. There was the way that they played that. They had no clue who was going to be in that pod, and they were like, "Well, that's a later problem. Everybody enjoy your break."
So I remember there being speculations about who would be in there, and I think I remember people suggesting super pets. Like some people were like,
incredible.
"What if Crypto is in the pod?"
Streaky.
Yeah, AJ Potts in the chat says, "Too bad it wasn't Streaky in the pod." But I do remember there were speculations about that, and so when it was like a human-like person in the pod, I was kind of disappointed. I was hoping it was a super pet.
I feel like there's like a lot of different cool ways that they could have went with like who was in the pod, and we got what we got. So that was one way. But yeah, I mean, I think, apparently Hagelblast says Allura was also a common guess. That would have been interesting and cool. I think maybe by then they realized that they wouldn't be able to get Laura Benanti. I think she was back on Broadway or had just had a baby or something. So maybe the original, I could see that definitely being like an original plan. Like, oh, it'll be, it was Kryptonian. It's her mom. And like that would be a big twist. But like then they were like, "Oh, never mind. We can't do that. Who should we put in there instead?"
Well, I always thought it was very pointed that she says that it looks like her ship.
Mm-hmm.
They had already had Bizarro, so it couldn't be Bizarro. But it would have been cool if it had been a Supergirl-like character, like another take on. Now they do that with Rain in season. It's at the end of season 2, where they also have another pod in the finale to usher in the reign of Rain in season 3. So
I remember we were like, "This again?" Little did we know.
So it eventually stops with the pods, but for a while there, it was all pods. So I did think it was a strange way of writing that, to say that it looks just like hers, when it didn't have anything to actually do with her. So that's another thing that's a little missed opportunity, I think.
Rachel says, "I saw another article suggesting it could have been Power Girl."
That would have been awesome.
Which would have been very cool. I'm sorry. I love this idea so much. Laura said, "A ship with the bottle city of Kandor strapped into the sea." That would have been incredible.
That would have earned the reaction.
That would have earned the reaction. Also, you don't have to pay for a guest star because it's just a bottle. It would have been so good. Oh, I'm so mad about this now.
That would have been. Oh, I'm surprised they never did the Bottle City of Kandor. They did.
I know.
They did bottle people in season 5.
which was like the closest we got. And it
Yeah.
wasn't that fun. Like, I wanted it to be more fun. Like, in the comics, the Bottle City is insane. And like, that's the level I wanted it to be on the show.
They all shrink down and it's a lot of fun. Well, anyway. So that's a little bit of a disappointment, but that was I remember that being a cliffhanger that everybody was talking about, who's in the pod. So that was a pretty big deal for the show. Morgan, are there any other things that we didn't talk about that you wanted to bring up?
I like the Jean stuff in this episode. I thought it was
Right.
really good. He has a really nice conversation with Kara, and she gives him like a kiss on the forehead. He really cements himself as Space Dad in this one.
Oh yeah.
He does that sick breaking Indigo into very dramatic save and helps her fight I don't think she could have fought without Martian Manhunter. I don't think she would have won. And he gets named head of the DEO again, which continues the process of like the head of the DEO being like the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, where like you can't be head of the DEO for very long. It is a cursed position. And I love that the camera like pans over to Lucy, who goes like, like the face that Jenna gives in that scene where she realizes that like after all of her hard work, like John just got the job back again. He was like, well, don't worry, little one, like we'll keep you on. And then and then knowing that next season like Lucy's just gone, like Lucy's just in the wind. And then I think my only other thought about this episode is like this, I feel like, is where we really begin the process of like the forgotten of Supergirl.
Yes.
Because this episode, not just the pod, but like cues up a bunch of things that we will never hear about again. So goodbye, General Lane. It was nice meeting you. Goodbye, Lucy Lane. It was cool getting to know you. And maybe most tragically of all, goodbye, Maxwell Lord, who was like a pretty solid like villain with like a little glimmer of like maybe he's not so bad, and then you're like, no, he is bad, because we never see him again. Who knows what he ever did with that what was it?
The
Omega Hedron?
Omega Hedron.
Yeah, General Lane gives him that thing, and he's like, sweet. And then we don't know whatever happened with that, but I'm sure he's off like powering a small island somewhere,
or a new train.
Oh my God, he got his own island. He created a train. The train goes all around the island, and he just like has drinks and rides the train. He is in his own version of paradise.
That sounds great, actually.
Right? I would go to that island. I would ride that train.
Yeah, so there are a couple of characters in here we will never get to revisit. Cat Grant we will see again a few times in the series, but goodbye to the forgotten of Supergirl. Although one of the characters from season 1 that we lost tragically, they do acknowledge her untimely death in Catco in this episode. I thought that was a nice
Kelly.
touch. They all look at Kelly's.
They look at her
desk with a lot of affection and fondness.
It is kind of weird that like there's this whole. I mean, we don't know that Kelly is the only one that died because of Myriad. It just kind of feels like she's the only one who died. Probably like a lot of other people died because they're like their doctor wandered off mid operation or something.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, I've got my heart here.
Wait, that brings up a really good question.
That's not to think about
like,
any of that.
What if people like had car accidents and
they definitely did.
Yeah, they definitely did. So, yeah, I think that would have impacted people more than we realize.
Yeah, we think that only Kelly died, but I think a lot of people in National City ascended on that day. But yeah, I did laugh when they were like look over at the one desk and they were like, not everyone made it.
Yeah, so
R.I.P. Kelly.
R.I.P. Kelly. Lindsay suggests that maybe all the forgotten characters are hanging out in the Bottle City of Kandor.
I love that for them.
Yeah. That's a better
Maxwell Lord
situation.
built a train in the Bottle City and it's going great.
That sounds like a happy ending for everybody. All right. Well, I think that is going to do it for our discussion on the season 1 rewind of Supergirl season 1's Better Angels, which is the season finale. But Morgan, since we didn't get to do any snap judgments in season 1, let's make some snap judgments. In the game of snap judgments, each person is presented with 2 options, but must only choose one. First instincts are recommended and explanations are unnecessary.
Okay. Bigger missed opportunity. Kara's new Catco office? Or not finding out what Maxwell Lord and General Lane did with the Omega Hedron?
I would have liked to have seen the Omega Hedron or the Omega Hedron. Some people pronounce it differently. I think they pronounce it both ways in Supergirl the movie, but I would have liked to have seen what they would have done with that in the future. So I think that's story-wise. I think I would have been really interested in that.
Yeah, I really wanted that like Omega Hedron plot. I think that would have been fun. I think that Maxwell Lord as like a character was like really kind of coming into his own, and I'm sad that they were just like, well, I guess we have to leave you behind here in Los Angeles, not coming to Canada, I guess, because I do feel like they had like really developed him in a way that like you kind of understood what he was about as a character, and also you knew you could not trust him in any way, shape, or form, which is also always like a really kind of a fun villain if they're like somewhat human and you sometimes think like you can get through to them and then they're like the power cube. You're like, you got me again, Lord. Missed opportunity for sure. Okay, what was more surprising, Alex saving Supergirl in the pod or Cat Grant saying Kara correctly?
Yeah, I think the Kara mentioned is the bigger thing for me, because it always I know it's coming. I know she does it in the episode, and it's still because there's a little smile that Callista gives her after she says it, and I think it's just so well played by Callista. So I think I'm going to say that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that one too, because they kind of telegraph the Alex save thing, because she like dramatically looks back at the pod and then she goes, all right, get on out there. Like she's just like, I don't worry, I got you. But like the Cat Grant saying Kara's name correctly for like one of the first times in the whole show, that I wasn't quite expecting, and I think it was like very emotional. Not that like Alex saving her sister from certain death wasn't emotional, but like she said her name right.
Yeah, if that had been in Working Girl, I might have gotten emotional and cried about it.
Maybe I would have cried. And then we have a snap judgment from Rachel, who said, if you were mind controlled by Myriad, who would be more likely to snap you out of it through a Hope speech? Kara or Hope the AI?
Hope, it's in the name.
It is right in the name.
And if she's an AI, she can write her own speeches. She can like pull things. Maybe she could pull from. What if she could simulate a Supergirl Hope speech and make it?
I bet she could.
I bet she could.
She's a real smart AI. Obviously, I'm gonna go with Hope too, because I think it would be fun to be like, you know, you're in it and like you start to come out of it and you're like, what pulled me out? And then you hear, don't give up, Hope, ever. Seriously, don't. I haven't done much speech writing before as an AI, but I think this is inspiring you. And you'd be like, what? This inspired me?
Why was there a question at the end?
Why is she asking? Like, I feel like Hope would also give like a really unhinged Hope speech where it would work, but then like towards the end it would trail off into something like truly insane. So
like
she
world
would start,
domination or something.
Yeah, like she would start out being like, we must all have hope, all of us together, working together, killing Supergirl together, having hope that she will die. And you'd be like, whoa, I was so on board with, but it got weird at the end. She's like, I don't know what you mean.
Well, I want to make it clear, I did not choose Hope the AI. I just think the premise of it is...
No, I choose Hope the AI for sure. That's who I want snap me out.
So I think in a realistic way, I think Supergirl can have an emotional delivery that I just don't think Hope the AI can really bring to the table. Because even if that Supergirl Hope speech was a little cheesy, in my opinion, Melissa was selling it. she was giving
did
it her
really
all.
sell it.
Yeah, so I think if anybody could sell, it's one thing to write the Hope speech. It's another thing to really deliver it. So
That's true. That's true. Hope's delivery would be weird. I think that's part of the charm for me. You'd come back and you'd be like, "Oh my god, I feel like so much hope for my future now, but also, must I kill Supergirl?" We could have set up like a whole different like problem for season 2.
They still should have made Hope the AI one of the big bads.
I'm so mad about it.
Me too.
Never give that up.
All right, that's going to take us out of Snap Judgments. No judgments on your Snap Judgments.
Okay, and we got some feedback on the episode. So Daryl wrote in with some thoughts about Supergirl season 1, writing, "Watching this made me remember that we are watching Kara's first goodbye tour, but not her last, over the course of the show. I love the show, but the impact is lessened because we know she's going to be back in a few months each time she does it." General Lane, "How is it that Superman is still down for the count?" Me, "Well, General, they haven't cast him yet." But I mean, I will say the way that they frame that one shot where she's talking to John and the boots are just continuously in the background, just sitting in the background, very funny. I don't think they meant it to be funny. Very funny.
Supergirl doesn't even acknowledge that he's there.
She don't even care.
She goes in to see how Martian Manhunter is, but she doesn't care
even check on him. She doesn't even acknowledge his existence. It's just a pair of boots in the background. It's so good. I miss season 1. Daryl goes on to say, "I'm surprised that Kara didn't solar flare during the heat vision fight, but I guess they still needed her to have the strength to take Fort Roz out."
This is a really good point, Daryl. I actually thought that too when they were doing their heat vision duel, because Supergirl really has to use a lot of her heat vision during that fight. And yeah, I think Daryl is right. They got her close, but they needed her to be able to have her powers to go up into space.
That's true. Crystal ball moment. Kat gives Kara the job of finding her replacement, and in the season 2 premiere, which presumably takes place the next day after this finale, we see that Kara has picked Eve Tessmacher. Is it just me, or did Kara just kind of pick the first resume she saw? She probably didn't even interview candidates. This all feels character correct for Kara, if I'm being honest. Daryl goes on to say, "Also, Kara just got an office only to lose it in 24 hours, never to be seen again." That is hilarious. "Excuse me, what is the point of promoting Kara if her salary doesn't change? Is she so well paid as an assistant that Kat knows it won't make a difference?" And then finally, Daryl says, I have a bad feeling about what's in that pod."
Or who's in that pod.
Or who is in that pod.
I am going to defend Kara in the hiring of Eve Tessmacher, because she was a good assistant. Now, did she shoot James in the back in the office?
I mean,
I seem to recall that she shot somebody in there. But I think she, for a little while, I think she was a good assistant. I think she did a good job.
Yeah, I mean, she was really doing it. Yeah, the murder was bad, but up until there, she was great.
Yeah, she was great. I think she's a good choice. All right, well, we need to go back to the future into May 16th, 2023. So that's going to end it for season 1 Rewind. All right, and it looks like we need to get to some Supergirl Radio and some DC TV podcast plugs. If you would like to contact Supergirl Radio, you can post a comment on our website at supergirlradio.com. You can email us at supergirlradio@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can call us at 678-718-7252. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram, all at Supergirl Radio. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Podchaser, and Spotify, where we also have a Spotify playlist that includes music featured on and inspired by the CW's Supergirl TV series. We are listed on DC's fan page, which you can find at dccomics.com/DC-fans. If you like what we do, we encourage you to give us a rating and write us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy our Supergirl Radio live streams, make sure to subscribe to the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel and hit that notification bell to get notified when we go live and Wired. DC TV Podcast also has a TeePublic store, so if you're in need of new DC TV related t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, onesies, mugs, notebooks, pillows, or stickers, go to supergirlradio.com and click on the TeePublic store link at the top of the page.
Now see here, Supergirl Radio is part of the DC TV Podcast Network, so if you want to listen to other shows, we've got The Flash Podcast, Legends of Tomorrow Podcast, The Lituation Room, DC on HBO Max Podcast, Stargirl Podcast, Superman and Lois Radio, Green Lantern Podcast, The Sandman Podcast, DC TV After Dark, and Justice League Dark Podcast.
And since we talked about the Supergirl Season 1 finale, where Supergirl gave a hope speech and Brainiac 8 did get ripped apart and died, RIP, we have some designs in the TeePublic store we'd like to suggest.
Yeah, so there's a design where, Morgan, I'm going to ask you to guess what you think that Kryptonese says in the image that I have.
I'm going to guess hope.
That's correct.
Oh
we
my
have,
God,
we have a shirt in the DC TV Podcast TeePublic store that has hope written in Kryptonese. And we also have a design that's basically the Brainiac design. But if you want to support Brainiac 8, I think it applies as well. So definitely go check out the designs that we have in the DC TV Podcast TeePublic store. We would also like to thank our legion of super sponsors for supporting the Supergirl Radio Patreon. These people are Michael, Anne-Marie, Yvonne, Quinn, Nicola, Abby, Miriam, Nicole, Brian, Ethan, Danny, Tara, and Majuba. If you would also like to support us on the Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio. Got a lot of Patreon content that I need to get up, but that is coming this week. So if you want to stick around for that, it got good things coming your way. You can also catch up with me if you want to follow me on the social medias. You can find me on a platform called Vero True Social. I am there at Derby Kid, and I'm on Instagram at the Derby Kid. So a little bit different, but it's still me. So you can check me out over there. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/duckmilkprod. I'll be taking a little bit of a break until the summer when I want to come back with some fresh content after my vacation. So look out for that. Maybe I'll get back to doing some live streaming. I think that would be tons of fun. So just subscribe. And when I have some stuff, I'll let you know.
Very cool. Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Mojotastic. And you can also find me as a co-host on the formerly the Legends of Tomorrow podcast, now the Legendary Lady podcast, where we just did a primer for Into the Spider-Verse. We're now ready, or Across the Spider-Verse. I'm so sorry. We're now ready to see that movie because Kat gave us a Spider-Man 101 lesson. And I learned so much about Spider-Man and clones and Mary Jane's weird powers, her jackpot powers. Did not know any of that stuff. So it's a really fun, if you've ever thought to yourself, like, I know some things about Spider-Man, but I could know more. You definitely could know more. There's so much crazy stuff I was not aware of. And Kat gave us a great lesson on all things Spider-Man. And you can also find the Legendary Ladies. We are on YouTube at the Legendary Ladies, and we're also on Instagram at the Legendary Ladies. So you should follow us. We're trying to do more reels, so we're trying to get that more in there. So I think we just posted one of why Superman. Amy wanted to ask
Spider-Man.
Why Spider-Man? Amy wanted to ask the who, what, when, where, why. So the why question, why Spider-Man?
That's a philosophical question.
It's a philosophical question.
Existential.
I actually think Kat gave like a very philosophical answer to the what it was kind of a ridiculous question. So you should definitely check it out. And I think our next episode, which I had to miss out on, so I'm excited to listen to it, is about how media, like TVs and movies specifically, use romances. The sort of the will they, won't they, and like when couples get together and when they're like never allowed to, like say Peter and Mary Jane.
That's a good topic. I'd be interested in hearing a discussion on that, because there's always there's a debate on, do you put them together too soon, or do you let it linger out like Bones, which took forever and everybody was?
I feel like the image that they uploaded for one of the like maybe the YouTube stream was like a picture from Bones or something. Like, yeah, like are you gonna give them like a normal time frame, or is it gonna be like an X-Files situation where it's like, oh yeah, no, they had a child between episodes 5 and 6. It was off screen, so you missed it. You didn't want to see that, did you? It's like, I just want to see Mulder and Scully kiss. You're evil. I forever hate bees because of the X-Files. So
understandable. But honeybees are so cute. And
they are so cute. But like they were about to kiss, and then somebody got stung with a bee, and I was like, "That's it, bee."
Oh, that's true.
That's
true. I know too much about bees now. I feel like every time we're in this section of Supergirl Radio,
you're always defending bugs to me now.
It's the problem of working for a natural history museum. But if you don't know, I'll give you a little bee fact. The way to decide or to identify which kind of bee it is, if it's got a shiny butt, it's a carpenter bee.
Oh,
so you can identify bees by their butts.
Oh,
which is my favorite thing about bees.
The next time I see a bee, I'm gonna respectfully look at its butt and figure out what kind of bee it is.
I always know which one is a carpenter bee.
Amazing.
Look for that shiny butt. So that's how you do it. So I'm glad I can bring some bug facts. Also, speaking of which, thanks for asking my question about Spider-Man and what spider pet would he have?
We got into a whole discussion about spider pets and like which one he would have, and then we talked about the jumping spider, and I got to pass along the knowledge of Lucas the jumping spider.
He's so cute. He's still
so cute.
But I think Kat gave a good answer about that. But I'll just tease it. Everybody should go listen to the episode.
If you want to know what kind of spider Kat thinks that Spider-Man would have as a pet, you have to listen to the episode.
I think it's a good answer. It's probably not what I would have answered, but I think she gave a more correct answer.
Yeah, I was surprised, but I was like, no, I buy that. I buy that.
Yeah. All right. So I guess enough of the bug talk. This is not Bug Facts Radio. That's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. But until next time, I'm still Rebecca Johnson.
And I'm still Morgan Glennon. And thanks for joining us for Supergirl Radio Rewind.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom. Because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. It's so fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yeah!